It hit me during the night and I felt super hot and was shivering all night. Have any Redditors been diagnosed with coronavirus yet? If so, what is it like? My best friend is one of only 225 patients here in Germany so far to fully recover from the virus. He's 19 though, so he only experienced a day of mild symptoms, and after 2 weeks of quarantine everything's back to normal. My uncle, 70, got diagnosed with it a couple of days ago in Washington state. He's been quarantined but the nurses didn't know proper protocol at the time and allowed my auntie to visit. Now she has self-quarantined herself at her home. He seems to be in stable condition in the last update but does have pneumonia. Update for those who want to know what the doctors did to my uncle. My uncle is stable. They took sputum cultures, meaning they check for bacterial infections. It takes 24 hours to get a result. If it's viral pneumonia, this is a good sign. If your kidney function and cardiac function responds well, this is also a good sign that you are strong enough to fight off the infection. If you do not, you will experience a multi-system failure following. He was still hard of breathing, so they intubated him. Gotta give credit to the doctors, nurses, and med staff. They are certainly stepping up and doing the best they can in such a disorganized system. Good heroes. Hope this puts things into perspective. I'm a very healthy person. Normally, for me the worst parts are really bad flu mixed with a little shortness of breath and sore throat. I've quarantined myself, mostly to protect people in my city who can't fight it off. Damn it, Biogen. I am a nurse at Level 1 Trauma Center Hospital in Detroit. I swear COVID has been around for weeks. There are several members of my surgical team that has been hit hard with respiratory and fevers. We may have misidentified this like the flu. There has been a lack of communication, policy, and testing. My hospital doesn't have a plan. My wife is an accountant and they have a plan to work from home. Again, my hospital does not. This means we are continuing to operate as usual until we physically cannot. My hospital rolled out a policy. We are not to meet in groups of over 20 people. Once our first confirmed case is in-house, all elective/non-emergent surgeries are cancelled. We expect to have our first case tonight. We expect our ICUs to get hit hard sometime next week. This is what has been bothering me in Michigan. On the west side, we continue to be told there are no confirmed or diagnosed cases. But no one will ask point blank how many people have been tested or even if the largest hospital system has tested. Well, I asked but wasn't answered. Communication has been abysmal, emails every day that says nothing. Work from home if you can, use PTO if you want, but otherwise, you better be here. I work EMS in Tennessee and 2 days ago we transported a patient from hospital to hospital who was a confirmed COVID-19 patient. Ask me in about 2 weeks how I'm feeling. My daughter lives in a nation, like a co-ed frat, at Lund University in Sweden. A close friend of hers that lives in her corridor is Sweden's patient zero. He returned from Italy about a week ago. Since he entered the country via Copenhagen, the health department didn't catch him until the next morning. He felt fine and had only encountered 2 people in the hall before going to his room. He tested positive and the other 2 are quarantined for 14 days. They took him to the hospital. 2 days later he spiked a 105 degrees fever and he has a bad cough and chest tightness. He's been achy, had chills, headaches, vomiting, and diarrhea. He goes through day-long stretches where he feels like he's gotten better and then it comes back. He's 21, was in great health and shape. They are doing breathing treatments on him. Statistically, he should be fine. He said it's like he's going to die, then he's fine and the circle begins again. He felt fine and had only encountered 2 people in the hall before going to his room. He tested positive and the other 2 are quarantined for 14 days. We have 1 case at the moment and it's a girl who flew into Chicago from Italy. Then she proceeded to take a train to STL. Once home she got sick and it was suspected she was infected. So she was tested and it came back pre-positive. The health department told her and her parents to self-quarantine. Well, the dad thought it was ridiculous, very affluent and arrogant, so he decided to go ahead and take his other daughter to a father-daughter dance at her private school. People lost their shit and started threatening him, so he had an attorney make a statement and said, "I didn't know." The health department said, "The fuck you didn't." The parents of the school are already threatening to sue him if their kids get sick. It's the first time I have heard threats like that made. There is a person in my local area's subreddit who is saying my doctor refused to test me, and told me to stay home. Well, if she doesn't think I'm sick enough to test, I'll just go out and see how many people I can infect. SMH. Everyone else in that thread was telling the dumbass to stay home. But yes, when there is a spreading contagion, it's a handful of morons who do most of the damage. Me. I'm 28 and so I'm not in the higher risk category, but I can explain my symptoms, I guess. I've been sick for 15 days and only have stayed in my house for the last 5 due to not having lots available here in southern Spain. It started as a cold with mucus and that was the main reason why I hadn't taken it seriously, but after a few days, it got more severe. My symptoms by day 4 were a sore throat, wheezing, coughing, chills, no appetite, swollen lymph nodes, sour muscles. This was new to me, and in the last few days it's turned into a painful dry cough. A friend of mine may have it, based on the symptoms and severity he's experiencing, but our local government won't give him a test for it because he hasn't recently traveled from China or Italy, and hasn't had contact with any confirmed cases. It's absolute bullshit. Our actual virus rate is probably exponentially higher than what's been announced, just because they won't test for it. There was a guy who caught it on one of the cruises. His wife didn't catch it, but he did. He said that he got a fever a couple of days in a row, got dehydrated, drank a ton of Gatorade and water. It was mild for him and he was already looking like he was in his 60s. He wasn't complaining of chest breathing problems. He said the weird thing about the whole virus was he didn't get the achy, headache, coughing, stuffy nose like the regular flu. Stepdaughter brought it home from school, made us all sick. 3 days of fever chills, felt like blowing and coughing razor blades. Stayed hydrated. Probably a week and a half into it now with only a cough and blocked snotty nose. The phlegm is a yummy thick sticky green. Can see how the elderly or infirm could be pushed over the edge with it. Here in WA, our Governor Jay Inslee has had a few districts planning to close. Seattle and Snohomish already have. Ours should be by every right, but while some of our neighboring districts have decided to close starting Thursday, we are continuing to follow the advice of health officials. At this time, the Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department continues to recommend that schools stay open. We pulled our kids out preemptively, no fucks given. They have excellent hygiene for hand washing and cough covering, taught the littlest to dab when he coughs. The elder kids knew before this season. But after some of the shit I've seen in the schools, just couldn't in good conscience wait for an order from the district. Kids are excellent reservoirs of disease, and schools are absolute fucking petrified dishes. My father's college/friend has been diagnosed with the coronavirus. He was in northern Italy during the outbreak, then returned to his home country, where he was stopped at the airport. RN is under house arrest with at least 6 policemen in front of his door. He is about to be transferred to the hospital. Honestly think my dad had it 2 weeks ago. Had a high fever, the worst cough of his life, trouble breathing, and didn't leave his bed for 5 days. I had chest congestion up until about 3 days ago. Was at a doctor's office a week before feeling symptoms. All good now, didn't get tested, but he's convinced he got the corona at the doctor, as he says, haha. If he did have it, it makes me feel better about it because he didn't have serious complications and didn't pass it to any of my family members, including myself. Was on a cruise with my housemates and caught it from a bunch of Chinese tourists. My buddy showed signs first and was severely bedridden for 3 days. He got tested on the second day, and whilst we knew he had it, results took a couple of days to get back to us. I got hit on day 2, of my buddy being sick. It hit me during the night and I felt super hot and was shivering all night. When I got out of bed my clothes were dripping wet from all the sweat. Spent that day feeling pretty tired but not too bad. Next day though I felt more tired and by 7 p.m. I was exhausted and went to bed. I got up the next day and my energy was returning, but I'd now developed a fairly frequent cough. As I have asthma, any illness that affects my lungs screws me up. So I got over the temperature part and lack of energy bit over 2 days and it wasn't that bad, but my cough took the best part of 2 weeks to get over. It wasn't a painful cough, it was just annoying that it was frequent. I also had mild diarrhea for the first 2 days. My housemate got over the cough part on day 3. His girlfriend, lives with us, ended up sick on day 4 and her symptoms were just like his. Our other housemate didn't get much of a cough, but he took 5 days to get over the fever/get out of bed. Then we spent 3 weeks in the house. Thankfully we always keep our house full of food, so we didn't even need to order food. I took the test again and we were all clear. Personally, on a pain scale, the fever was maybe a 4, tiredness a 7 and the cough was maybe an 8 for frequency, but the pain was only like a 3. I had the flu a couple of years ago and that kicked IAmA way worse, but I can definitely see that if you're old and have weak lungs how it could really screw you over. Plus of course, it's way easier to catch/spread, so if you think you have it, stay the fuck indoors. Not me at all, but an acquaintance of my mother died. She was in her 50s with some heart issues. She likely got infected on a trip on the 20th, died 2 days ago. The 2 weeks incubation period is a max incubation period. It can be way more drastic than that. My friend works in a hospital that has confirmed cases. He felt mildly unwell and got tested purely because of his proximity to the patients. He was surprised to get positive results. Said that for him it's just like a medium severity head cold. He said in any other circumstances he would have continued going to work the way he feels. I have a hunch I had it. I went to bed totally fine, just a little groggy and irritated. When I woke up the next morning my joints hurt worse than they have ever hurt before when I get sick. My lower back and hips were throbbing and no position could get me comfortable or reduce the pain. I felt like I needed to throw up, sort of like that pit in your stomach feeling, but I didn't even dry heave. Not to mention, I was extremely dehydrated. It felt like a really bad hangover combined with the flu. I was stuck to my bed for a few days groaning from the pain in my joints, tired as fuck, and practically hibernating. Woke up one day and felt totally fine. I remember telling my mom how different this felt because of the pain in my joints. I've had the flu, I had MRSA, and I'm pretty familiar with a cold. This one hit me differently. Within a week of being sick, multiple people in the county and neighboring county had popped up testing positive for coronavirus. One a few counties over involved a case where someone who had just gone bar hopping around the same time as me and my friends had tested positive. I live in one of the towns where it's reported like 11 cases, which is a lot more in Norway than say America, and my boyfriend happens to drive the sick, elderly and school children on a daily basis as a taxi driver. It's how they make most of their cash. He saw one of the corona patients last week. All packed up in safety gear with lots of health personnel around him. And the worst is that south in Norway there has been a news case where the King doctor's office didn't inform the taxi driver that the patient they were driving had corona. So he and the guy after him in the taxi got most likely infected, and 14 of the passengers following now has to be quarantined and tested. It's stupidity. You don't send corona patients with a taxi when you know the taxi drivers don't know and don't have any medical training whatsoever. I just want to cry and scream because I have a weakened immune system and asthma. My boyfriend has already dragged home lots of viruses that are a lot more common, but this is absurd, and he works off of how many he drives. He gets 43% of what he drives in and then has to pay like 34% taxes. So now that they are gonna start closing school and people are gonna go under quarantine, it means we are losing our biggest income. So we'll update if I get it. Because it sure seems like I'm gonna end up getting it. I have not contracted the virus, but things have started to become panic-why here in Greece. All types of schools are shut down for 2 weeks and last night we had our first victim. Also, having Italy as a neighbor is not that great at the moment. Well, the nearest cases to where I live are 20 minutes away, driving, so, I'll tell you in the week when it inevitably gets here. True to my word, here's an update. I'm nearly 100% sure there's a case of corona in my school because just 5 minutes ago the principal came on the intercom. She canceled all clubs and after-school activities. We were all rushed through the halls by the administrators and weren't allowed to mingle. My friend and I were joking about corona. She yelled out that she had corona, as a joke, and was immediately taken aside and yelled at. Don't know what happened to her, I didn't see her get to class. Another kid did the same and he was also brought aside. An announcement came on as I was writing this and the principal told us that anyone even joking about corona would find themselves in quarantine. Oops. Rumor is that school might shut down and we'll all be sent home to do classes online. I live in a small city that had many Chinese tourists all out through the year every year. We're talking several 100,000 to millions. It's really weird, the rest of our country is sick and in a state of emergency. Throughout the country, there are hundreds of cases, not here though. We had one mild case so far. The city is laid back and it seems like people are happy to be able to enjoy the city without tourists. Restaurants are still open, Concerts are happening, bars are packed with locals, and so on. Word is that since the virus probably spread already autumn/winter of 2019 and we had several 100'OOOS Chinese guests, since then, we probably all had that virus already and didn't even realize it. The fact that we had a bad flu season in winter supports that theory. Over 1,000 cases now throughout the country. Our city is still sitting with that one case that in the meantime got healed. So we have no documented cases as for now. This is so weird. We should have at least a dozen cases. Still 0 cases. Most bars/restaurants and all clubs are now closed though. All schools closed until April. People are staying home in their garden, kids are playing outside, teens hang outside in groups like we used to. Everything's still quiet and relaxed. Beautiful weather, I can smell that a lot of people have begun their grilling season. Might be just the calm before the storm, but people seem to enjoy it as long as it lasts. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.